What if the peace you've been longing for isn't lost in a faraway place, but quietly breathing inside you, waiting for your return? What if your pain isn't a problem to solve, but a tender part of you, asking to be seen, to be understood, and to be loved? This is not a path of striving or chasing light. It is a gentle remembering of who you are and who you have always been, because the Buddha is not somewhere beyond your reach. The Buddha is already within you. The Buddha is your breath. The Buddha is your being. Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where each story is not just told, but felt, like a truth your heart has always known. 1. Coming home to yourself. The journey begins within. There is a path that leads us back to the place we have never truly left. It is not paved with stones, nor lit with lanterns. It begins with a breath, a single, tender breath. You may have walked many roads, passed through many seasons, and searched in distant lands for something that always felt just out of reach. Peace, wholeness, a sense of being enough. But what if the journey you've been seeking is not out there in the world, but gently waiting inside of you? Not a destination, but a homecoming. Not an arrival, but a remembering. To come home to yourself is not a task. It is not a goal you need to achieve. It is a way of being present, of allowing yourself to simply be as you are. No more running, no more pretending, just being, just breathing. This is the doorway. When you close your eyes and listen deeply, can you hear it? The quiet voice of your own presence calling you back. Not in words, but in stillness, in the sound of your own breath, in the way your chest rises and falls, like waves on a shore you forgot you belonged to. This returning begins the moment you stop resisting, the moment you give yourself permission to feel what is really there, not what you wish were there, not what you think should be there, but what is truly present in this very breath, this heartbeat, this moment. This is not weakness. This is courage. The courage to be intimate with your own life. Coming home is not about comfort alone. It may feel tender, even raw, at first, because when we stop running, we meet the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. The loneliness that hides behind the busyness, the fear wrapped in the laughter, the sadness that is no words. But these are not enemies. They are simply parts of ourselves that have waited so long to be seen, to be held with compassion. We are taught in many ways to escape ourselves, to fix what is broken, to rise above our pain. But the path of true healing is not up and out. It is down and in. It is rooted in presence, in the sacred silence that allows all things to exist without judgment. The Buddha within you is not a concept. It is not a statue on a shrine or a figure in a book. It is your capacity to be fully present with yourself and others. It is your ability to smile at your suffering without needing to erase it. It is the quiet strength that comes from knowing that nothing in you needs to be thrown away. The journey home begins when we slow down enough to notice the miracle of being alive, the way your feet touch the earth, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of the wind brushing through trees. These are not trivial things. They are invitations, invitations to awaken. When you breathe mindfully, you are already practicing the art of coming home. Each breath in says, I am here. Each breath out says, this moment is enough. Over time, the breath becomes an anchor, holding you gently in the flow of life, not demanding, not forcing, simply holding. Try walking slowly, not to reach a destination, but to feel each step. Let the soles of your feet kiss the earth with reverence. With every step, say quietly to yourself, I have arrived. I am home. This is the practice of mindful walking. It turns an ordinary act into a sacred ritual of presence. To come home is not to retreat from the world. It is to enter it more fully, with eyes and heart open, Because when you are truly at home within yourself, you can be present for others in a way that is healing. Your presence becomes a gift, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. The wounds you carry do not disqualify you from being at peace. They are the doorway through which you learn compassion. When you sit with your sorrow, instead of turning away, you discover that pain does not need to be eliminated in order for peace to be possible. It only needs to be held. Presence is the soil in which everything grows. When you water it with your attention, your inner world begins to bloom. You may notice that joy arises more easily, not the loud, glittering kind, but a quiet joy, like the soft opening of a flower at dawn, a joy that does not depend on circumstances, but on awareness. And yes, the mind will wander. It will tell stories of the past, create fears about the future. That is its habit. But you can smile at the mind. You can say, gently, "Thank you, but not now," and return, again and again, to this breath, this moment, this now. That is the path. To come home to yourself is to know that you are enough, not because you have achieved something, but because you are breathing. You are life. You are the continuation of your ancestors. You are made of stars and soil, river and sky. There is nothing missing. When you look deeply into your own heart, you will see the heart of the Buddha, not as someone else, not as a myth, but as the awakened presence that lives in you, a presence that is capable of understanding, of forgiving, of loving without condition. In the quiet of a morning, when the world is still waking, you might sit on your cushion or in your chair and listen, not to the sounds outside, but to the stillness inside. You may feel emotions rise, grief, anger, tenderness. Let them come, let them stay, let them go. There is space for all of it, and in that spaciousness, healing happens, not all at once, not in dramatic bursts, but gently, like light spreading across a field. That is the way of mindfulness. That is the way of love. You are not broken. You are not wrong. You are human. You are alive. And the Buddha within you smiles when you remember that. Coming home is not an event. It is a daily practice, a sacred returning, a vow you make to yourself, not to become someone new, but to love who you are, as you are, again and again. When you are truly at home in yourself, you will see that the world does not need to change for you to have peace, because the garden you were searching for outside was already blooming inside your own heart. Welcome home, too, embracing the self that suffers, holding pain with compassion. When we begin to come home to ourselves, we do not always arrive to find a peaceful room. Sometimes we return to find sorrow waiting, or fear, or the tired ache of memories that have not yet been laid to rest. That is why coming home takes great courage, because in choosing presence, we are also choosing to face the suffering we carry. And yet, it is only through this deep and gentle embrace that healing becomes possible. We are often taught to run from pain, to distract ourselves, to bury it beneath layers of busyness or performance. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe that suffering is a sign of failure, something shameful or unnatural. But the Buddha taught otherwise. He did not ask us to escape suffering. He invited us to understand it. Suffering isn't the enemy. It is the teacher that speaks in the quietest voice. If we can learn to listen to it with the ears of the heart, we may begin to uncover its message, not to punish us, but to awaken us. When suffering arises, we are given a choice. We can push it away, judge ourselves for feeling it, or pretend it is not there, or we can turn toward it with kindness, not to indulge it or dramatize it, but to recognize it, like we would recognize a dear friend who is hurt and in need of our presence. In mindfulness practice, we learn that pain, whether physical or emotional, is not solid. It is not permanent. It arises, stays for a while, and eventually passes. But if we are unconscious, unaware, we may identify with it so deeply that we become it. I am this sadness. I am this anger. But in truth, you are not your pain. You are the space in which pain comes and goes. To hold your pain in mindfulness is to say, I see you. I know you are there. I will take care of you. Just as a mother holds a crying child in her arms, not because she can immediately fix the tears, but because her presence alone is a balm. The act of embracing our suffering is not dramatic. It is not always visible to the world. It happens quietly, within the sanctuary of awareness. Perhaps it is a moment in the morning when you feel heaviness in your chest, and instead of brushing it aside, you pause, you breathe, you place a gentle hand on your heart and say softly, this is here. Let me stay with it. That moment, however small it seems, is a revolution. It is a turning away from avoidance and toward truth. It is the beginning of compassion. Many of us have wounds that were never acknowledged. Perhaps as children, our pain was dismissed or misunderstood. We learned to cope by hiding it away. But hidden pain does not disappear. It waits. And as adults, it often reemerges through anxiety, depression, anger, or numbness. These are not signs of weakness. They are messengers. They are the language of pain asking to be seen. The path of mindfulness does not promise to erase pain. Instead, it offers us a way to hold it differently, to cradle it, not with fear, but with love. And in that cradling, something shifts. Pain begins to soften. It may not vanish, but it is no longer the master of our hearts. When we suffer, we often feel alone, as if no one else could possibly understand. But when we practice looking deeply, we see that suffering is part of the shared human experience. Just as the rain falls on all rooftops, sorrow visits every life. Knowing this, we can begin to let go of the sense of isolation. We realize that in our suffering, we are not separate, we are connected. This is why it is important to bring mindfulness to the stories we tell ourselves. When pain arises, our mind may say, something is wrong with me. I should not feel this way. But mindfulness allows us to respond differently. We can say, this is suffering. It is part of being human. I am not alone. Sometimes, suffering comes in the form of deep regret. Sometimes it is fear of the future. Sometimes it is grief that feels endless. Whatever form it takes, it is worthy of your attention. You do not need to have the answers. You do not need to make it go away quickly. You only need to be present for it. One breath at a time. Breathing in. I know this is pain. Breathing out. I hold it with tenderness. These simple words, practiced daily, begin to change the relationship we have with ourselves. We shift from judgment to understanding, from resistance to trust. This is not theory. It is practice. It is a way of being that we return to again and again, even in the midst of great suffering. The Buddha within you is now lost. It may feel obscured, like the sun behind thick clouds, but it is still there. Your ability to remain present, to breathe through the storm, is the light of the Buddha shining through you. Let us not forget the lotus, a beautiful flower, born from the depths of the mud. Without the mud, there is no lotus. In the same way, your suffering is the fertile soil in which compassion blooms. You do not need to be free of suffering to be whole. You are already whole. Even as you heal, sometimes healing comes in waves. Sometimes it comes quietly, like dew settling on leaves. You may notice one day that you were able to smile at a memory that once brought tears, or that you can sit with sadness without needing it to end. These are signs that the seed of compassion has taken root. To embrace the self that suffers is not to identify with the pain, but to recognize the one who suffers as worthy of love. This recognition transforms everything. When you see yourself clearly and hold what you see with kindness, the inner critic begins to fade. The voice of shame grows quieter, and what remains is the simple truth. You are worthy of compassion. Now, exactly as you are. Sometimes it is helpful to speak to yourself gently, as you would to a dear friend. When you are overwhelmed, place your hand on your heart and say, "Dear one, I am here for you." It may feel awkward at first, but over time, these words begin to plant a new seed, one of inner trust. There is a strength in this gentleness. It is not loud, but it is steady. It is not dramatic, but it is enduring. When you meet your own suffering with this strength, you become a source of healing, not only for yourself, but for others. Your compassion radiates. Your presence becomes a refuge. Let us remember that every moment of suffering is also a moment of opportunity, not to fix or change, but to listen, to be still, to understand. This is what the Buddha offered, not an escape from life, but a deeper way of living it. And when we walk this path together, when we sit side by side in silence or share words from the heart, we help each other remember. We remember that healing is possible, that love is possible, that within each of us lives a vast and open sky, beneath which even the stormiest emotions can pass. So if you're hurting today, do not rush to make it disappear. Sit with it, breathe with it, offer it your presence, and know that in doing so, you are walking the path of awakening. To embrace the self that suffers is not to dwell in sorrow. It is to light a candle in the dark, a candle that says, "I am still here. I am still breathing. I am learning to love even this." 3. Cultivating the Buddha within. Daily nourishment of awakening. There is a seed within you. It has always been there, waiting. It does not ask to be awakened through effort or ambition. It simply needs your care. It is the seed of the Buddha, the seed of insight, compassion, and boundless peace. Though the world may have taught you to look outward for answers, the teachings remind us to return to the soil of our own being. There, in the quiet depths of your breath, the Buddha is blooming. To cultivate the Buddha within does not require grand gestures. You do not need to become someone extraordinary. The path of awakening is walked gently, through the sacred ordinary of each day. You wake in the morning and greet yourself with a smile. That is already the practice. You breathe mindfully before taking your first step. That is the practice. You wash your hands with presence, not hurrying. That, too, is the practice. In each moment, you are watering the seed. Practice is not about trying to reach enlightenment as a distant mountaintop. The Buddha within you is not sleeping in some hidden realm, waiting to be discovered like a treasure buried in stone. No, the Buddha is already here, awake in your deepest capacity to touch life with tenderness. Every mindful breath, every kind thought, every act of patience is a bell calling you back to your true nature. Begin where you are. You may sit for 5 minutes in the morning, simply breathing, not forcing anything, not chasing silence, just noticing the inhale, the exhale, the rise and fall of your belly. In these quiet moments, you are offering yourself the deepest kind of nourishment. Presence. The Buddha is not a concept you must master. The Buddha is the one who is fully alive in each step, each breath, each glance that carries understanding. And as you move through your day, you may find yourself caught in worry, pulled into the currents of judgment or distraction. This is not failure. This is the path. Even the Buddha, before his enlightenment, spent years wandering, struggling, searching. Your forgetfulness is not an obstacle. It is a reminder to come home again. Each time you remember the breath, each time you pause before reacting, you return to the place where the Buddha in you is breathing quietly, waiting with patience and love. You do not need to be perfect to begin. In fact, it is the cracks in our lives where the light of practice enters. It is in the chaos of the morning rush, in the silence of grief, in the dull ache of fatigue, where we are called most deeply to water the seeds of awakening. When you are patient with your own impatience, when you smile at your own anger instead of feeding it, you are cultivating the inner Buddha more surely than in any monastery. Mindfulness is the ground. Compassion is the water. Understanding is the sun. Together, they allow the flower of insight to bloom. You may not see it all at once. Practice is not always dramatic. Sometimes, the changes are invisible, like the way a tree grows slowly, from within. But, over time, you will notice your words become softer, your steps lighter, your heart more spacious, not because you are trying to be someone new, but because you are becoming more fully yourself. A central part of this daily nourishment is deep listening, not just to others, but to yourself. There is a wisdom within you that does not speak in words. It speaks in the tightness of your shoulders, in the flutter of your breath, in the silence beneath your thoughts. When you slow down and listen without judgment, you begin to hear what the heart truly needs. Perhaps it needs rest. Perhaps it needs to forgive. Perhaps it needs to simply be heard. When you offer yourself that listening, you are already embodying the awakened one. The Buddha within you is not separate from your suffering. It is precisely in your suffering that the seeds of awakening lie dormant. When you choose to stay present with your discomfort, rather than flee from it, you are creating the conditions for transformation. Like heat turns dough into bread, the warmth of your presence transforms pain into wisdom. It may not be quick, but it is real. Each moment of mindfulness is a sacred act of trust that even in this, healing is possible. It is important to remember that the Buddha practiced with others. He walked, sat, and ate in community. You, too, are not meant to practice alone. A sangha, a spiritual community, can take many forms. Perhaps it is a group that sits together weekly. Perhaps it is a friend who reminds you to breathe. Or perhaps it is the birds in the morning, the trees that sway in stillness, the sky that reminds you of vastness. When you walk in mindfulness, all beings become your companions. Eating can become a practice. When you sit with a bowl of food, you can see more than the meal. You can see the sunshine in the rice, the rain in the vegetables, the labor of countless hands. You chew slowly, gratefully, aware that this nourishment is a miracle. In doing so, you feed not just the body, but the Buddha within you. Gratitude is a form of awakening. It is the recognition that life is not separate from the sacred. When anger arises, you can recognize it. Hello, my old friend. I see you. I know you are here. I will take care of you. This is no suppression. This is not indulgence. This is love in action. Emotions do not need to be controlled. They need to be held. And when held in mindfulness, they begin to soften. The storm passes. The sky clears. And you are still here, grounded in your breath, rooted in your practice. The Buddha is not only found in temples or statues. He's found in the way you speak gently to a child, the way you forgive a mistake, the way you stand still when the world is spinning. Every act of compassion is an offering. Every act of presence is a bell of mindfulness ringing in the world. Do not underestimate the power of small moments. Waking up 5 minutes earlier to breathe, drinking tea without your phone, placing your hand on your heart when sadness visits. These are not trivial. These are the bricks that build the temple of your daily awakening. No act is too small. No moment is too late. There may be days when you feel far from your practice, days when the noise is too loud, when the suffering seems too deep. On those days, remember the river. It does not rush. It flows, slowly, steadily. It carves stone into softness. Your practice is the same. It is not about progress. It is about presence. Trust the river. Trust yourself. In the evening, you may light a candle and sit in silence. You may recall your day with tenderness, not to judge, but to notice, where did you water the seeds of peace? Where did you forget? And even in forgetting, how did you return? The Buddha is not asking for perfection. The Buddha is asking for presence, for your willingness to begin again. To cultivate the Buddha within is to see your life as sacred, not because it is easy, not because it is without sorrow, but because every breath is an opportunity to live awake, to love deeply, to see clearly, and to touch the world with the same gentleness you are learning to offer yourself. Awakening is not the end of the road. It is the road. The path itself is the fruit. Each step taken in mindfulness, each breath touched with awareness, is a seed planted in the garden of your own awakening. And this garden, once tended, offers shade not only to you, but to all who pass by. You do not need to wait for another time. The bell is already ringing. The invitation is here. The Buddha is not separate from your life. The Buddha is your life, fully lived, deeply felt, and gently embraced, one mindful moment at a time. You don't need to climb mountains or cross oceans to find healing. You only need to stop, breathe, and return. The Buddha within you has never left. It has only been waiting for you to notice. So let each step, each breath, be a loving homecoming. If this message touched something quiet inside you, stay with us. Here at Trandy Wisdom, we share stories that are not just told, but lived.